Good Monday morning to you. I am Dan Kopp of Leading Like a Buffalo, coming to you live from Madison, Wisconsin. And joining me today, like always, is Ty Fershing. Good morning, Ty.
Good morning, Dan, and good morning, rest of the world. I am coming to you live from Entebbe, Uganda, and periodically we do have some technical difficulties due to the nature of technology on this side of the world. But Dan takes care of it on his end if I disappear. So that's all I'm saying. Dan?
Whoa, no pressure there. Have faith. Just to be clear, I'm not going to take care of the technology issue you may have, whether it's Wi-Fi, power, etc. But I will roll with the program in your stead. That's what he meant, because I'm not a technical guru, either virtually to Uganda or locally here in Madison. So today we're going to be talking about strategies for hosting meaningful meetings. But before we get into that, I want to remind people, Ty and I are on a journey of becoming enhanced leaders, and we are helping others do the same. And if you like our content, feel free to comment, ask questions. If you're watching us live on LinkedIn, also you can jump over on YouTube to our Enhanced Leadership channel, and we would love to hear from you there also. If you'd like to work with us, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, there are two emails scrolling along the bottom of the screen, dan@leadingbuffalo.com or tide@tradesecrets.com. And we would love to help you become an enhanced leader. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Ty, and he is going to lead us in a discussion of strategies for hosting meaningful meetings. Ty, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Dan. So the whole idea of a meeting is to get something accomplished. At least that's what I view it to be. So we're talking about meaningful meetings, and I'm sure everybody's been in a meeting where they're like, why am I here? What am I doing here? What's going on? Is anything getting accomplished? And a meeting that's supposed to last a half hour or an hour ends up going on for an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes, like that. One of the worst things that you can do is go overtime on a meeting. I mean, unless you're really hitting something good, the worst thing you do is go over your time that you scheduled for the meeting, because people expect to be done. And the other thing is, people need to be on time for meetings. So timeliness is in order. So how do you do that? Because if you can get this timeliness thing done, you can get a lot more done within a meeting. So one of the, it goes as basic as having an agenda. If you have an agenda, you have something to go by and you know what's going on. And of course, depending on the structure of your meeting, or if it's a weekly meeting or monthly meeting, you can set those points that need to be on the agenda. And you prioritize those points, because if you schedule a meeting and you say it's from 12 to 1, then at 1, you should be wrapping it up. And of course, people want to add to the meeting after it's done. My answer to that is, we'll table it till next meeting, no matter if it's important or not, because we need to respect everybody else's time. Now, if it's an emergency, that's different. If it's important, that's different. If it's an emergency, then yeah, we need to act on it now. But if it's important, it can wait till next week, most likely. But it may be too important for that person to want to wait till next week. So it goes about this respect and building it. If you're already in charge of a meeting and you're chairing a meeting and it's a weekly meeting, it's a lot harder to pull back the reins if you have a loose meeting, if you have loose meeting guidelines. So it's more beneficial to start off with, like, this is what we're doing. It's an hour long. If we run out of time, we will hit the stuff next week. This helps people realize that what they are saying needs to be succinct and clear. Because one thing I don't personally like, Dan, I know you've been in meetings where somebody will say something about a point or have a solution, and then 3 other people, oh, I agree with John. I agree with that totally. That's good. What I would do is this, and they re-echo it 3 or 4 times during the meeting. Most likely because they agree with it, but also because they want to feel like they're contributing to a meeting. And because you're at a meeting doesn't mean you need to speak in a meeting, but being attentive and aware and having the presentation of yourself, acknowledging what's going on in the meeting, is key. So that interaction there is also very important. Dan, I'm going to give it off to you, but I'm going to ask you a question because I heard this the other day and I thought it was pretty. Well, I'll just read it. Okay. If somebody is in a meeting and finds that the meeting is not helping them in a meaningful way, and they're not contributing to the meeting, they should just leave.
Ooh. So you want me to respond? I'm going to respond from that from two different perspectives. I'm going to respond from the person who's sitting in the meeting and feeling like this isn't for me. There's no way that I would consider that's appropriate if I'm the person in question. Like, this isn't for me. I don't have anything input. I'm going to leave. That's just not appropriate. You use the word respect. If nothing else, is out of respect for the people who are there, the person hosting, and the organization. So out of respect, I'm not going to do it. It's just not proper decorum, in my opinion. If I'm the person hosting, I think it goes back to something I was going to bring up prior to the question, was you've got to have norms established as a group attending the meeting, but also as a leader of the meeting, you have to have norms. And those are things you acknowledge. At times, we're going to discuss things that may not be relevant to your department. However, and this is me leading the meeting. However, if we are on that, odds are you may learn something about the organization based on a discussion that's about somebody else's department. Or it may be something in the organization you're not aware of, therefore you think you have no input, but your knowledge might grow and you might be a better cog in the wheel, if you will, in the overall working of the organization, if you know more about a different department. So from either perspective, either as the person leading the meeting or the person who feels like this isn't for me, I don't think it is proper to leave a meeting just because you don't think you have input or it's not relevant to you. I've hosted meetings. I did it for 10 years. I hosted meetings of a group of leaders who came together and spoke specifically about their issues between the two of them, not issues per se in a negative lens, but things that were relevant to them that weren't at all relevant to me. I still hosted those meetings monthly for 10 years because I saw the relevance in regard to it's making me better at the role I had in my somewhat related field. And I was growing based on the knowledge they were exchanging. So I don't think it's ever appropriate to leave a meeting just because you as an individual think it's not relevant. I don't have any input. Or if I'm hosting, somebody get up and leave. Deuces, I'm out, boss. See ya. Oh boy, no.
Well, that's where you have to understand that if the employee believes they don't or not going to contribute, you have to understand that they probably know they're not going to contribute.
Right.
However, I agree. It may, in certain sectors, it may be more acceptable because this also lends credibility to who you're inviting to the meeting. If you're continually inviting everyone, but it doesn't have to be everyone, but because you want to be fair, everybody has to spend their time in the meeting, and the topic has nothing to do. It's not interdepartmental. It's a department problem, or you're focusing on one issue that these people are the key people in that thing. Then maybe it'll make you think, who do I invite to this meeting? And sometimes people get hurt. Oh, they didn't get invited to that meeting. I'm like, sorry, life's tough. Get a helmet. I don't know. It's just like.
I've been in both sides of the table when I've been a part of a meeting where I've got a little piece, and then the hosts of the meeting said, when your little piece is done, you're welcome to leave. That makes me very uncomfortable, even though they've given me they've welcomed me to leave because, hey, thank you for your input. There's the door. Feel free to leave. But I'm like, this just feels uncomfortable. I'm going to get up and walk out when I'm done talking. So I usually don't. Having said that, when I'm on the other side of the table and hosting, and I've told people going in, hey, you've got 5 minutes. Within the first 20 minutes, you're going to have a 5-minute segment. There's your time. When you're done, you're welcome to leave, but you're also welcome to stay. And I will overtly acknowledge that in a meeting because I've been on the other side. Like, I'm uncomfortable getting up and leaving because the person hosting told me I could leave, but does everybody else know that the person hosts? So I consciously address that. Hey, thank you for your input. I appreciate you coming in. X, Y, and Z, follow up later, whatever. as I told you earlier, the rest of the meeting is not relevant to you. You're welcome to stay, but there's no requirement. You're also welcome to leave. It's totally up to you, and it's okay if you do either. So I confront the issue so everybody's upfront with everybody. Hey, this person is okay to stay, okay to leave. It's up to them, and I want to make sure they're aware of that.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because it hits back to, if you have established norms where that is a rule or a norm that you get up and leave if you're not, when you're done with your presentation, because you don't need to be there, you were just there to give the presentation,
Right.
Then it alleviates that awkwardness, that feeling
Right.
that, oh, are people going to be upset that I get to leave early? And quite frankly, it builds a better cohesiveness within the team meeting that you're having, or the meeting. Another thing is, how do you broach if someone's tired and they're falling asleep? What's the norm for people? Dan, you and I don't know if you remember, but back in the day when we were taking those like 8-9 hour a day classes in the military, right, all day long, if we were tired, we were told, you know what, stand up and go to the back and hold your notebook and take notes, like that. Don't fall asleep. I've actually used that. I haven't been that strict about it. I'll get in the back and take notes if you're going to fall asleep. But I said, look, if you're tired, get up, grab a cup of coffee, do whatever, but don't sit there and do the head nod, because that's so can be focused on by people as like, look how disrespectful that is, and someone may have been up all night doing something, not whether they're out, but they may have been working, burning the midnight oil, and they're like, oh, I got this meeting to come down, depending on what your organization is. So I think you hit it right on the head. Those norms have to be established, and I think they need to be established early, or there has to be an appropriate time to establish, because if you try to establish all those norms and you've already been doing this meeting for 6 months and it's a weekly or bi-weekly meeting, it's going to be a culture shock when they walk in and, oh, everything's changed. You gotta
bring them back in. Yeah.
Bring it brains, like that. So
I think norms are huge, especially, a lot. Let me take a step back. A lot of things, what we're talking about, we've talked about enhanced leadership. We've talked about leadership tenets, both through internal and external, through the lens that Ty brings to the table and through the lens I bring to the table. And this all culminates in, all right, great, lead like King Arthur. Yeah, we're going to trust our advisors and listen to them, et cetera. But how does it play out in a meeting? This is how. As a leader of a meeting, I'm going to say, all right, we're going to have this agenda. And from this point forward, these are the norms or the things I expect. There's going to be times where I'm going to bring something to the table that is a collective decision. This body needs to decide what to do. And I expect you to voice your opinions, and we'll collectively come up with a decision. However, there are times where I'm going to bring things to you, and I'll tell you when that is, that they're my decisions to make, but I still need your input. So getting back to why the norms are important, people need to know going in, whether it's a hiring committee, whether it's a decision for the organization or unilateral you have to make at the top, you need to tell them up front what their input means. A, that you expect it, and B, what you're going to do with it. I'll take it into advisement. I will let you know what I decide, or I'll take it into advisement and here's my answer right now. Or yes, here's our collective answer. Let's move forward. Other norms that come to mind, it's got to be a safe place for people. So you've got to have mutual respect and voice your opinion. And even if you have a dissenting opinion, but we make a collective group effort decision, once we leave the room, people have to support the decision. And what we talk about in the room stays in the room. Sort of like Las Vegas, right? What happens in a meeting stays in the meeting, just because it's not healthy to have a discussion about what the right answer is. And we get to an agreed upon decision and then have somebody out in the back, well, that was the decision he made, but I wanted X, Y, and Z. That does no one any good. So
I'm sorry, guys.
Those are the types of norms that I really suggest you look at with your meeting and the expectations you set with people going in.
And so we've talked about what to do as leaders in a meeting, and there's a couple other things that people may not know, or even leaders don't know if they're going to another meeting and you're not the chair. So my helpful hint, and I'm sure Dan has one too, but my helpful hint is this. If you go into a meeting and you've never been in that meeting before, and maybe it's a brand new meeting and people are coming from different areas, who knows, parts of the country, doesn't matter. The number one thing that I do every time is I have my well, not this clipboard, but I have a piece of paper and I draw the table I'm sitting at. And when people go around and introduce their names, I draw a little chair or a little circle with that person's name. So when I'm in the meeting, I can say, hey, Dan, what did you mean by when you were talking about this? Or hey, Carol, what did you mean when you're talking about this? And address them directly by name. Not only does that position you in a good spot, but well, this cat really pays attention, but it gains respect for everybody. Oh, wow, he knows our names and I don't know his, and so, and I'm not saying you're doing a power play, but it raises the level of communication and discourse between the members of the meeting.
I agree 100%. I wish I were smart enough to do that every time because I don't. But I try to remember, but usually fail. I should draw a stupid diagram. That would make sense. Why didn't you tell me that like 30 years ago? What the heck?
I had to position myself.
I finally figured it out. So also other things we've talked about over the last number of episodes, like if you're hosting, what type of message do you want to send to people when they walk in, especially for the first time? Do you have to sit at the head of the table? I've talked about that on a previous episode. I'm never at the head of a table because I don't need to be at the head of the table for people to understand that I'm in charge. So whether it's greeting them at the door, welcoming them outside the door, welcoming them with, hey, welcome, have a seat wherever you'd like. Can I get you a cup of coffee? Whatever it takes to make them feel comfortable. That's what I do as the leader because I know it's important to be welcomed and feel comfortable and at ease. And typically when I'm hosting, I like to have, whether it's water, coffee, tea, those types of drinks available. Excuse me. And also have some type of food, whether it's something I baked from home or something I purchased on the way into work. Getting back to your point about if you're tired, stand up. I encourage people, hey, if you need a break, feel free. We're going to continue without you. We'll have a break. Say it's 2-hour meeting. We'll take a little break in the middle. But if you need a break when it's not the scheduled time, feel free to get up and grab a cup of coffee, drink of water, pace a little bit, use the restroom, whatever you need. Because we want to make this valuable and we want people engaged. And if you need to take a 1-minute jaunt to the bathroom to get re-engaged, feel free. If you need to go get a cup of coffee to re-engage, feel free, whatever it takes. And I think those are important ways to approach the meeting as a host. Also, we talked in a previous meeting about taking care of your people. If you're hosting a meeting of your organization, I recommend you start with some type of positive accolade. Hey, people, we're here. Thank you. It's our weekly meeting. What's been going on great since the last time we met? Talk about the great things that we've experienced, we've seen, we've overheard, whatever. Celebrate those things. At the same time, have those note cards that I've referenced in the past, put blank note cards in the middle of the table. Hey, while we're celebrating our coworkers in our organization, if you want to send a note card to somebody and show appreciation, feel free to send those out. Both of those tactics get people into the game, sort of like, all right, things are going now, we're working, and it gets them in a positive mind frame because you're talking about celebrations, accolades, and gratitude. And you start your meeting that way and make that one of your norms as well. And you're on your way to starting a successful meeting.
Yeah, that's huge. That's so important. I mean, I can't even add to that because without the norms and setting the guidelines up front, it can go on forever. The meeting can go on forever. And that's why I'm really a stickler. If it's an hour long and we get to the hour, I'm sorry, we're done with the meeting. We'll touch the rest next week. And they'll be like, and some people are like, well, I go, well, we got off track. We had, and keeping people on track is a hard thing. I always say, come back, people, come back. Like the end of Shane, which no one's going to know what I'm talking about. But
there you go, dating yourself again. Yeah, one final thought I have is when you close out a meeting, like when you summarize it. All right, here's what we discussed. Here's our action item. And all right, Joe, you're going to do this. Sally, you've got this task. Henry, you're going to follow up with me via email or phone call by the end of the week, so we have an answer for next week, whatever. Make sure people are aware who's doing what. Whether it's a 3-hour meeting or a 20-minute meeting, the reason you meet is not to disseminate information. It's to create a decision or action plan. All right, I decided this. Thanks for your input. I will roll this out to the organization. Whatever it looks like, make sure you summarize it and make sure everyone's aware who's doing what action-wise as a result of that meeting. That's huge.
Yeah, and I'm my other point, and then I'm done with points, is make sure that what you're covering is what needs to be covered, that it's not just a meeting to have a meeting, because we are supposed to meet each week. And if we don't meet, people are going to think we're not doing our job. Make sure there's something there. If not, cancel the meeting. There's no reason to have it if you don't have anything new. And if everybody's on track and knowing what you're doing, there's no reason to have it.
Or if it can be sent in an email, it's just informational only, send it in an email. Say, hey, instead of a meeting at 4:00 on Friday, I'm going to send you an email by noon. I just have some information for you. Feel free to knock off at 4 and head home, whatever it is. I mean, it's just information, disseminate it via email. Yeah, easier. All right. Well, today we talked about how you can employ some of the leadership tenets we've discussed over the last few months in a real life situation in hosting effective meetings. Hopefully you got a little bit out of it. These are just our ideas, but we've used them for 30 plus years, each of us, and they work. So again, I'd like to remind you, you can jump on YouTube, our Enhanced Leadership channel on YouTube, and check out our content. If you'd like to contact us, you can either DM us on LinkedIn or email us directly at the bottom of the screen. You can see our emails, Dan@leadingbuffalo.com and Ty@tradesecrets.com. Ty, any last thoughts?
No, if you're hosting a meeting, you want to be the guy that people, oh man, I like it when he hosts the meeting because we get things done and we're out of there on time. Be that person. People will come to that meeting knowing what to expect and knowing that when the time hits, they're done. So.
Well said. Well said, Ty. Well, in fact, I'm the host of this here meeting. I'm going to end it right now. So we'd love to hear from you people. If you want to become an enhanced leader, feel free to reach out. We are talking leadership. You can do it. Good luck.
Take care, everyone.